Okay, so I'm going to hand the meeting over. It will just run straight through for the next 30 minutes. And our first, well, we've got 3 speakers, and our first one's Joe.
I'm going to stand because this is the worst acoustic in the world. My name is Joe. I'm the newcomer of this group. And just before coming here, I was chilling out, sitting down and trying to get my thoughts together in two in common. And there was this big log. I was sitting on this big log. It was a fallen tree. As some of you will remember, in 1987 there was a big storm in October. So a month after this meeting started, I don't know what we were doing, but we must have pissed somebody off really badly. That's how long ago this meeting was, the 87th storm, just a month before. I'm just going to focus on a few little bits of history, if you like, as far as I remember them, which is not well. But the most important thing that came from coming here to me, it came to me very strongly, is that I've never really thought of the BRIXTON meeting. The words that come together in my mind are the BRIXTON group, which is like that heart of NA. And coming in here, I just seeing so many faces going so far back, and so many faces that have been here again and again and again and been part of that group. That really has been the most important thing, for as long as I've been associated with this meeting. Tollis is to blame. There were meetings in South London, there were meetings in South Norwood and in Croydon, and somebody not a million miles away, I think sitting in a Chelsea meeting, with his tongue in his cheek, replied to somebody from Croydon, "That was wonderful. I don't think I've ever heard anyone from south of the river before." But Tollis was to blame. He really wanted to do some service. I was quite happy to, get on the bus. But somehow it happened, and a meeting started. But a meeting started, it's all been spoiled. We had a nice little room, didn't we, in Brixton Rec. You had to go in past the turnstile where the guy tells you, basically he's like talking to somebody and you're annoying him. You have to tell them you're a recovering addict going to Narcotics Anonymous. You get this great maze of directions. You end up in the real back room, and there's this tiny little, pokey little room and a piano, and there's half a dozen of us. That was good, because there was half, you had time to share, and you didn't have to learn any new names, there weren't any newcomers, kind of confusing things. It was a proper meeting. And then it all went pear-shaped. Somehow we ended up here, and they started letting anybody in, and anybody could turn up. And then you had to get past Albert, though. And this meeting was very, very nearly called Albert. I swear to God, it was very nearly called Albert. And love him to bits, our greeter. But we met here, and we still did it, we did what we could. Somehow, I think, because there was a service ethic, this group has always been very strong on service. I mean, I know Tollis and I have kind of been on meetings together, and you could sit in a Brixton. This meeting had service. This group had service meetings after the main meeting that would go on and on and on and on and on. I'm sure that doesn't happen now. But practically everybody in the southeast area and at some time in the region, it was all going on. People were so enthusiastic about it and being part of it that they would give up whole bits of their Sunday night to sort of help carry the message, or maybe just to shoot the breeze or get a topic off their chests. But that was very important to this group. This group, it seemed like it practically ran the southeast area. There was the Southeast Convention, was basically an offspring of the Brixton group. And in fact, I might say, there was another event that was kicked off here. The Oxford Convention. I don't know if you remember that, but that's stepping forward a bit. It was still a nice little group. We knew everybody that turned up, and then it all went pear-shaped again, because we were doing it the British way, and we were kind of modest and quiet and doing it like all the other meetings were doing it, and then these septics turned up. When I was I would go down the Brixton Ritzy and watch old foreign movies, and one of my favourite, and get absolutely wasted. And one of my favourite old foreign movies was called Jour de Fête, which was basically set in France, in provincial France, just after the war, and it's about this this garden fete, and there's this French village postman on his bicycle, and it's slapstick, so he falls off it a lot. And then he goes into this tent, and there's a film of American postmen. And these American postmen don't drive wonky bicycles, they drive motorcycles, they do display motorcycling, they do pyramid motorcycling, they fly around in jet planes, and he's completely gobsmacked, and he tries to bring that back to provincial France. And to me, that was what happened when these two characters turned up out of the blue, and they started making us talk to newcomers, and have a meeting before the meeting, and have a meeting after the meeting, and get really involved. And the only chairs we had were members of the group, and it grew and grew and grew and grew. It was incredible. The other thing that he introduced was this medallion ceremony. You know, you're standing in the middle of the room and everything goes very big and very small, and the whole giving up medallion. Now, I've been to the meeting that he got it from in Minneapolis, and they don't squeeze it into 5 hours after the sharing session. They actually have a whole meeting that they just give medallions and make little talks. But again, that was all part of celebrating recovery. It was totally changed. And then one day we all went out in a Volkswagen microbus to visit a recovering addict in Oxford, and we camped in a field. Now these days I think they have Bob Geldof appealing for money to save these poor people, and you see this tent city out in Oxford kind of struggling and overcrowded, and it's like huge now, but that started as part of the BRIXTON group. Another thing that started, and we had, I mustn't go on, we had these retreats where you could go somewhere and be spiritual and share, and well, essentially, or basically be locked up for a weekend with somebody who you thought ought to get to know you a lot better. It was a great group activity. But the thing that really kind of gets to my heartstrings was actually not an official activity, and members are here today, is that when I was using, there was one guy I was never allowed to see because he was like, whatever, you know, the guy you were never allowed to see because probably you'd get a better deal or whatever. And finally, I think in the Pizza Hut, in one of the meetings after the meeting, I got to talk to this newcomer, and we became buds. And then one day, after a particularly well-fed Boxing Day, I found myself on top of Mount Snowdon, or very near it, looking down at the clouds. He said, "Try this, it's fun." Climbing with ropes. It was really like Michael Palin kind of stuff. Within a very short time, there was a monthly trip out to North Wales. Now, some of you will hate the idea, but as a session for getting to know yourself and to know others and to get to know people, you're cold, you're wet, you're angry, you're tired, you're very possibly lost, and it's getting dark. There's sleet coming at you, and to cap it all, there's vegetable stew when you get back. And this is one of my favourite activities. There'd be members of this group, there'd be people from outside, and there'd be newcomers. And you'd have a fantastic share-out sharing that experience. It was one of the most fantastic, marvellous things that happened. It wasn't an official function. There wasn't a BRIXTON group committee, because obviously there would be somebody here after the meeting who would want to know how much turnip was being bought and who it was being bought from, and they wouldn't even go on the event. So it never got caught up in that, but it was one of my favourite, well, something I'll hope I'll remember as long as I live. I don't mean to offend the people who actually cooked the turnip. It was really great vegetarian. I used to travel a long way to come here. I don't anymore. There was a certain amount of you-know-to-mean abuse, which most people can put up with, but that was my excuse. I moved away. I moved to North London. Well, nobody's perfect. It's just so good to be back. We are in BRIXTON tonight. And it's just so fantastic to see all these faces. And just to see that the group is alive and well. The group is still here. 20 years. Yeah. 20 years. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you.
My name's Susie and I'm an addict. And I was in Texas, and Nigel said, "Oh, are you coming to the BRIXTON reunion? It's on September the 9th." And I thought that'd be nice. And on September the 9th, I was flat on my back from the air conditioning and the freezing, the freezing cold inside and the hot and wet outside, in and out, strange Texas, stuff. And I thought, oh well, what a shame. It's the celebration tonight. What a shame. So I thought, well, you know what? Probably best. So I'll go next week. And so I was doing a bit of work with a sponsee this morning, and Tollis rang, and he said, you coming tonight? And I said, funnily enough, I was just saying to my sponsee, I'll go to the BRIXTON meeting tonight. I said, oh, that's good. And I thought, he said it's the thing tonight. Oh, I said, oh, well, I won't worry about that. I'll go anyway. And then when I got here, it was like, well, you're doing 10 minutes. And it was like, then it all came on top. And I have to say that although I am a sort of South London sort of bred girl, I did spend most of my adult life sort of Chelsea and Pimlico. And so the first 10 years of this BRIXTON group, I was elsewhere, being smart and so forth. And then I came back exactly almost 10 years ago, and I must say I did hear about these Oxford campouts and this climbing stuff, and I did think, yes, right. Hot, and they did say, yeah, it was really cold, man, it was really freezing, and I thought I was going to slip, and it was really wet and dark, and I thought, yes, right, well, carry on. This sort of addict doesn't do that sort of thing, And the meeting, I wasn't there when it was in Brixton Rec, but when I came, it was in a memorial hall in near Landau Road, and I liked it there. I'm not good with change. I liked it best there, and it used to divide up, and we had a little room upstairs that was for the non-smokers, of which there were very few of us at the time. And it was nice. We'd turn the fire on and we'd turn the light down. There'd be about 9 of us. And, somebody else would come in after the meeting split up. Somebody else would come in a little late. And I'd be thinking, who are you? This is, oh, maybe I'll let them in sort of thing. And I have to say, this is a failing in myself that, And anyway, then there were some incidents with the hall. And we were moved on. And so then we moved to Talmer Road, which is the church, big building in Talmer Road. And there wasn't anywhere to split up, really. And so we just had the big group and the big group. And by the side got a small dog. And, and I wasn't so happy with it there because it was change. And I don't like change. And then after a space of time, we were ejected from there. And so the Brixton group, it was amazing how many people were in it, considering that you never quite knew where it was going to be next. And I was constantly amazed that, and I was on the committee during quite a lot of this time, and I did a bit of service, and this is really what I want to speak about is, although I've been around a long time, I'm a bit thick in some respects, and I don't know it until I know it, if you see what I mean. And I used to think, oh, well, so that's a nice bit of service, I'll do that. It doesn't take a lot of time, and I quite like doing that, and I get to talk or whatever. And then I went to area, and I thought, well, this is not too bad. I quite like it. I'm going to see people, and I didn't. And I must say, having been to Texas this time, I heard a lot of people with a lot of clean time talking specifics about what service needs and why they did it. And I just thought, there might be something I didn't get. Because at a certain point I stopped doing service. I thought, well, people didn't agree with me, and then I didn't like the way somebody did something. And then they wanted me to do more things. And then people were being really keen because we needed more H&I speakers. And I thought, I don't care if there are people who like H&I. I'm not one of them. And so forth and so forth. And what they were saying, at the convention that really kind of got me was, the point is not, what about me? But how can I help? And this bloke started talking about this, and I can't tell you, I sat there and it was like, there was a whole thing I hadn't got. I used to think, why do some people do any bit of service? Why don't they pick the bit of service that's nice to do and not do the other stuff? And this bloke is saying the thing about service is that not is it just nice and you get popular and you make friends, but that if you're in the position of what about me, he was saying there's never enough. He said for every addict in any room, there is never enough. He says, if you move yourself to that how can I help position, it isn't what you do that makes you feel better. It's just the position of, if I'm asking how I can help, I'm being an adult and I might get some of my needs met. But as long as I'm going, what about me, there just isn't enough. And I was listening to this bloke to say this and I thought, bugger me. I never got it. It's like, and it was like really strange. It's sort of, I was too busy feathering my own nest, if you know what I mean. It's like sort of, you know, I come from Pimlico and I'll come to Brixton and I'll do the nice bits of service and I don't do the things I don't like. And the wonderful thing about NA is nobody makes you. And, you know, and this group, you know, the bits of service. And when the meeting moved here, you know, I lost entirely my, you know, it got big and I didn't like that. And I got intolerant. And, you know, standing here tonight, you know, I just think it's so wonderful. But I thought I should stop coming for a bit because I wanted to stand up and say which bit of sit still for half an hour is difficult. And I, you know, and you know, that person has been out of this room 4 times. And that person should learn, and they've moved into a row there. Why don't they not move into a row there if they need, you know, and it's like, and I just thought to myself, somehow I got a bit lost. And that's true. But you know what the thing is the meeting did fine without me. And I don't think I did as fine without the meeting. And one of the things about Texas was there was something I'd lost, if I ever had it, that I got. And that's why I was going to come tonight anyway, was not because Tollis ran me, but because I got it. It's like, shut up about what about me and start saying how can I help. And I thought, well, one of the things I can do is go back to Brixton and see how my intolerance is. And I have to say that at this moment in time, my intolerance is high.
Dudley. I'm Dudley, I'm an addict. Can everybody hear? Yeah. It's so difficult to know what not to say. in 15 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. I mean, I came here when those Americans were running an extraordinary meeting. It was in another building, and I remember being completely blown away by it. And I thought, this is magic. I joined NA in America. Well, I'm in my 30th year of recovery. Yeah. But I say that to show off. I was going to go all humble and say, to prove that it works. It's bullshit. I walked into a small meeting in a place that's long gone. In Biscayne Boulevard in Miami City, and it was intimate, and it was like that meeting that I came to in Brixton one winter. NA Susie talked a little bit about a condition that afflicted me called service junkiedom. You have to be fucking careful when you get into service that you don't want to start running everybody. It's a high, it's an addiction. It can be an addiction. I remember sitting at a service meeting in Marlowe's Road, interfering with every fucking subsection, every paragraph, with every subject that came up for discussion. And I sat there and I could see myself sitting there, and I think, why don't you shut up? And I couldn't shut up, and I looked out the other, and my bike was leaning against the wall. I got up, and I walked out in the middle of it. I was heart sick, and I got into the bike, and I rode away, and I didn't come back for 3 months. That'll show them. When I got back, NA had increased. It was healthy and flourishing. It was extraordinary at the beginning of NA in London, because NA, the fellowship is an addict, hence the traditions. The fellowship is an addict, and Mary and Susie would bear me out. In those very early days, we were sick. We were, I remember at the very beginning, about 5 or 7 of us in a small room, and why we didn't kill each other, I don't know. We came close to it. And every time we came, our rage got the better. But we were only, I was the longest clean of the year. And a year is not very long. And we were at each other's throats, and every time it came to a period when it was really going to break up, we went to the traditions. And the traditions always have the answer. We don't talk very much about traditions in the fellowship, but I'd like to say that the traditions that we inherited from the mother fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, one of the manifestations of the disease of early NA was the terrific dislike of Alcoholics Anonymous. We'd always call it the other fellowship. It's the bedwetters. I don't know about you, but I shit myself. Red noses, I had a red body. It's like, you know those drunks who say, I've never been interested in drugs. You know, piss off. Alcohol is a narcotic drug. Yeah. And in early NA meetings all over London, we used to have a sign up that said, alcohol is a narcotic drug. You know, but what I was questioning was this distrust and dislike and sneering at Alcoholics Anonymous to whom we owe everything. Yeah. If you look at the bottom of the steps, there is a copyright acknowledgement of where the steps and the traditions come from. Yeah. And just not to dwell on that too much, the point about the traditions is I've always been politically minded, and I believe that the traditions are among the most robust of 20th century political philosophy. And I really mean that. I mean, the idea inherent in the steps, the idea of creating an institution based on anonymity instead of publicity, that's based on contributions, our own contributions, instead of accepting outside contributions. This structure that has been built so that it is incorruptible. The concept that the newcomer, being the most important person in the room, is sublime. There isn't, you know, I do political cabaret up in Edinburgh. One of the expressions I love to use is, you put a roof on a spiritual idea, you're in the power business. You're in the property game. Look at all the churches, all the cathedrals, all the people all over the planet killing each other for those fucking buildings. We don't have that. We rent through our own contribution, which keeps us sublime. And it keeps us caring about the most important thing of all, is that we come into this room in order to recover, not for selfish reasons, but to help other people to achieve recovery, to recover from the addiction. And looking at this room today, which is packed, I was sitting there thinking, everybody here will be going out eventually and spreading the message. And that is awesome. That is awesome. So if we think of ourselves, I don't know how many hundreds are in this room, but if we say quadruple, or what's the word for 5? 5 times, multiply we multiply it by 5. There's a lot of addicts and going on and on. Narcotics Anonymous took me by surprise in another area, and that is that when I came in, my ambitions were very clear. Lots of sex, lots of power, lots of fame, lots of money, and fuck the rest of the planet. And it is very, very different today. I didn't know that when Narcotics Anonymous, the program Narcotics Anonymous, took the onion skins off, took the layers off me, layers over the years, took layer after layer after layer off me, that I would finish up in the centre of a life that is much more simple. I'm not sort of spiritual. In fact, I'm agnostic as far as religion is concerned. I don't do it. But spiritual honesty, open-mindedness, willingness, spiritual helping people, spiritual learning when I'm pushing myself, when I'm trying to control situations. This kind of spiritual is a gift beyond anything that I ever expected. I didn't know that I would spend, I'm 74 now, I didn't know that I would spend a massive amount of time in great peace. I didn't know that I'd become creative in areas that I'd never thought I'd become creative in my late 60s and 70s. I didn't know that. I came in disappointed and bitter and raging because I'd fucked up what I thought was the career that I wanted. And if you tell people to fuck off enough, eventually they do. They did, en masse. I'm now the last sitting tenant in Chelsea. I think it's getting horrible around there, except for little oases of sanity like the fellowships and various places. But I don't have that jealousy anymore. My life was crippled by jealousy, of sexual jealousy, material jealousy, fame jealousy, all the jealousy, the most destructive and vicious of all the emotions, was destroyed, was really damaged by it. And my addiction had a lot to do with that, a lot to do with burying it. I didn't know what I wanted. And then they showed me. And just to finish now, there's an awful lot of abuse, a lot of cack talked about the word love. Love is one of the great misused words in the language, and I've used it often to try and get into people's knickers. It didn't work very often. But when I come to a meeting when I don't want to be at a meeting, when I'm new and I'm sweating and I'm shaking and I'm angry and I'm fucked up and I'm very, very frightened, and I come to a meeting and I sit at that meeting and some arsehole like me is talking, you think, I wish to God he'd shut up. You know, oh, so boring, and fat. Shut up. And I sit and I watch. And I watch that clock go round, and one of the great things it says in the service manual is start the meeting on time and finish it on time. Why does it say finish on time? Because of this fucked up newcomer who's watching that second hand go round and starts to rage if it goes past the time. And when he or she has sat through that meeting, and finally it's got to the end, and finally, after being full of hate for an hour or an hour and a half, gets out and walks down the street, suddenly, what is that feeling of warmth? I didn't say anything at the meeting, I didn't help anybody, I didn't do it. Why do I feel warmth? It's called love. You know, I love you because you love me. And I'd like to thank you very much for asking me. I feel
seated. Del, can you go and grab Albert? Is that okay?
Mate, get that one up there for us.
Where's the card?